This video will be doing a detailed look at the characteristics of each region in Legends of Runeterra, with a deep dive into the cards and keywords that define each region and the playstyle you can expect. If you are new to Legends of Runeterra, this is definitely the video for you. Demacia focuses on playing units and cards that use combat to solve their problems. The faction has a large number of units and spells that grant allies increased stats to promote working together in an army. This helps keep units' health up until they've survived combat, and it synergizes with other effects to greatly increase their health. Units like Vanguard Bannermen help the allies gain more value. When Demacia has a large board, they can use cards like Full Demacia and Cithria the Bold to buff all their units for massive swings. Challenger allows an attacking unit like Laurent Protege or Silverwing Vanguard to force an enemy unit to be its blocker. Challenger gives Demacia a way to kill or deal with specific units and reinforces their role as a faction that thrives in offensive combat. Tough is another defining key word, which causes a unit to take one less damage from all sources. The mechanic is absolutely devastating against decks that rely on small creatures and can even reduce damage to 0. Demacian cards like Bright Steel Protector and Prismatic Barrier use Barrier to help your units ignore the first instance of damage the unit takes each round. Think of it as a temporary invincibility shield like Hail's Ultimate in League of Legends, except it only lasts one hit instead of a time duration. The newest thing about Demacia is the Scout mechanic, which allows units that have the keyword to do a separate attack before their usual attack round. In combination with mechanics that Demacia already has, such as Rally, you can sometimes attack 3 times in one turn if you play your cards right. Freljord is the only region that has Frostbite, a card mechanic that sets the enemy's power to 0. By using Frostbite with cards like Ice Veil, Archer, and Shatter, you can win trades in combat, but more importantly, there's a good number of cards that trigger effects on Frostbitten units. Spells like Winter's Breath destroy Frostbitten boards, and champions like Ash require Frostbite to level up. The region has access to cards like Ridering Stones and Catalyst of Aeons that directly increase the number of mana crystals. This helps Freljord access their larger units and powerful spells a lot earlier than other factions. Freljord also has many cards with Overwhelm, which means any extra damage done to a blocking unit carries over to the opponent's Nexus. This pairs incredibly well with Freljord's mana ramp, since you can bring out threats like Alpha Wildclaw quickly. Poros have the most support cards in Freljord, with cards like Poro Herder and Heart of the Fluffed, that can summon, draw, and even combine your Poros. Once Braum is leveled up, he even summons a Mighty Poro every time he takes damage. Some Freljord units feature abilities to help them survive and reward them once surviving. This is exemplified by cards like Unscarred Reaver and Scarmother Vyra, which all gain power when they survive battle. This works well for Freljord because they have a lot of ways to heal and buff their units' health, so they can get continued value out of the survive mechanic. The Vulnerable mechanic has been introduced to Freljord. Vulnerable is a new debuff that allows you to force your enemies' units to block. Caught in the Cold and Ionia are 2 cards that take advantage of this. Noxus has a big focus on seeking glory and strength whatever the cost, and features cards that deal damage to their own units to give themselves benefit. For example, Transfusion requires you to deal 1 damage to an ally in order to buff another. As a burst spell, this can be handy for making sure your minions come out of a trade alive that otherwise would have died in, since burst spells can be played in any time and cannot be responded to. For example, by using Transfusion on a card like Crimson Disciple or Crimson Curator, you can create value from what otherwise would have been a penalty. Many Noxus units, such as Legion Rearguard and Trifarian Gloryseeker, are overstatted relative to their cost, but have the added drawback of not being able to block. This allows them to put pressure on early, since you often have better offensive units in the early game. Although the region doesn't have the best direct removal options, it does have enough stuns to create an opening to allow your attackers to get through. Cards like Decisive Maneuver and Intimidating Roar can create openings by stunning blockers. Like Freljord, Noxus also takes advantage of Overwhelm with cards like Battering Ram, which can quickly run away with their match if your opponent doesn't have the answer. Unlike other regions, Noxus isn't getting any brand new keywords. Instead, they're getting better tools to help them accomplish what they're already doing well, with more burn and more potential removal options, such as Imperial Geologist for self-damage decks and Auric Glimthorn for stun decks. Piltover and Zaun is the premier spell-slinging region. Whether you want to create, destroy, or augment, there is a spell in your arsenal that can get the job done. Some of the region's minions benefit from casting spells, or including spells in your deck, such as Karina Vereza, or more notably, Heimerdinger. Some of your spells, like Scrap Dash Assembly and Unlicensed Innovation, will even allow you to create minions so you can get away with decks that have much less units than other regions. The region also has the largest number of burn in the deck, meaning cards like Static Shock and True Shot Barrage can deal immediate direct damage to units or straight to the enemy nexus. The region also has a good amount of discard mechanics. With cards like Jury Rig and Augmented Experimenter, you can create treasure out of trash. Piltover and Zaun is also fantastic at adapting, and this is made possible by cards like Counterfeit Copies and Parade Electroid, which allows you to make copies from cards. When paired with the region's card draw engines, you can increase the odds of finding the solutions by quickly cycling through the deck. The region also has access to cards like Eager Apprentice and Flash of Brilliance to help fund expensive spells that the region is famous for. With the Rising Tides expansion, you're getting tools related to drawing more cards and providing you with benefits for drawing them. Patrol Wardens and Gotcha provide mana discounts if you draw into them, fitting in line with the theme of the region. The creatures of the Shadow Isles, such as Arachnoid Horror and Frenzied Skitterer, use the Fearsome mechanic, which only lets units of power 3 or greater block the card. This keyword is great for avoiding weak, low-cost blockers and getting straight to the enemy nexus. Shadow Isles often means you'll have to sacrifice your own units to die in order to activate effects that provide bigger long-term benefits. Last Breath triggers an effect when a unit dies, so Shadow Isles will be looking to trigger Last Breath effects as often as possible due to benefits it brings cards like Cursed Keeper, which summons the more powerful Escaped Abomination when it dies. Use this alongside cards like Glimpse Beyond to bring great value to your unit's deaths. You can pair the death mechanics with revival cards like Chronicler of the Ruin to activate Last Breath effects multiple times. A prime example of doing this is to be able to double the number of Undying you have with the Chronicler of the Ruins effect. Ephemerals are a large part of Shadow Isle's identity and can be used to set up large burst turns. Cards like Haunted Relic combo with Soul Shepherd and a leveled up Hecarim to become a large threat. Shadow Isles also has some of the best removal options in the game, with cards that can instantly kill enemies such as Vengeance and the Ruination. They also have cards with drains such as Vile Threat and Withering Wail, which allow you also to keep your Nexus healthy. The region's playstyle is expanding with the new keyword Toss. Many of the new Shadow Isles cards, such as Thorny Toad and Sap Magic, help to support this new Toss archetype by increasing your odds of surviving until Markai levels up and obliterates your opponent's deck. Ionia use creative tactics to defeat opponent rather than outright destroying them with might and power, using recall and stun mechanics to help manipulate the fight. Recall allows a unit to be returned to their owner's hand, can be used offensively and defensively. Ionia has a lot of units that trigger effects when they're summoned, like Windfarer Hatchling. Recall lets you get repeated value out of those effects. It can also be used offensively with cards like Minna Swiftfoot, which recalls 3 enemies. Ionia also takes advantage of stunning with units like Fire Blade Twirler and Yasuo, which synergize perfectly with Noxus' stun mechanics. Ionia is also a land of the ninjas. To play into this theme of stealth and assassination, they have the most elusive units, which are able to ignore blockers that aren't elusive themselves. Ionia doesn't have the strongest units or ways to deal damage to the Nexus directly, so uses the elusive mechanic as their primary method of easily getting through damage with cards like Shadow Assassin and the Umprorium. Iona also utilizes the Enlighten mechanic, which gives special bonuses if they're played when you have 10 mana crystals unlocked. This includes cards like Insight of the Ages and Karma. Enlighten gives Iona the ability to be flexible with the cards they're playing that are average in the early game but become amazingly cost efficient in the later game. In the new release, Ionia is receiving a big injection in tools for their spell-slinging theme, paving the way for combo strategies where you can plan ahead to chain together cards for big payoffs. For example, if you're able to play at least 2 spells during the round, cards like Eye of the Dragon and Deep Meditation will provide big value swings. Bilgewater's playstyle revolves around pirates and sea monsters. Plunder is a new mechanic that triggers an effect for the played unit if you've already damaged the enemy's Nexus this round. Jagged Taskmaster is an example of this, and all it takes is 1 damage to your enemy's Nexus before playing it, and 1 cost allies everywhere will gain an additional 1 power. If you're able to plan turns ahead to get the most out of these effects, you can quickly snowball the game. Tools like Death's Hand and Parlay will help you pull off this more frequently. You can harness the power of the sea monsters with the new mechanics such as Deep, which activates a +3/3 buff to all creatures with the keyword as soon as you have 15 cards or less in your deck. By combining Deep with mechanics such as the recently revealed Toss keyword, you can try to thin out your deck as quickly as possible to go tool above your opponents. Outside of sea monsters, Bilgewater utilizes sea creatures' powers with Attune. Attune is a new mechanic that grants you 1 refilled spell mana after you summon a creature with the keyword, such as coral creatures and Zap Sprayfin. Attune gives you access to strong 1-cost cards like Elixir of Iron to help win those crucial trades. Spells like this can be used to prevent Fizz being targeted. And that brings today's video to a close. I just want to finish off with my question of the day, which is, what is your favourite faction after the recent Rising Tides expansion? Thank you very much for listening, and please like and subscribe.